Now I'm really excited for you to hear a story from my friend Madeline Potts.
It wasn't Pepper's fault that he was the way he was. He was just 6 weeks old when we got him, a little black ball of fur with kitten blue eyes and a tiny tail that stuck up like a carrot. And all went well those first several weeks until I realized that my youngest daughter was giving him what she called rides on a spinning platform that came with some paint hurling games someone had given her. I put a stop to that right away, but of course by that time, Pepper was well on his way to being a neurotic cat. His name didn't help either, because I do believe that animals live up to the names you give them. His real name was Sergeant Pepper, as in the Lonely Hearts Club Band, but that quickly got reduced to just plain Pepper, and he was hot. Unlike other little kitties who would meow sweetly around your feet when they wanted something, Pepper would go right for your Achilles tendon. And if he didn't get what he wanted exactly when he wanted it, he would get so upset. He would have a physical reaction, and he would spew an arc of regurgitation 6 feet in front of him and 12 feet around. Pepper ruled the household, and he ruled the neighborhood. And Mrs. Goodfellow, our next-door neighbor, hated Pepper just as much as he hated her. And then Mrs. Goodfellow got a cat. She named her Puss Puss. And Puss Puss was just as white as Pepper was black. She was just as long-haired as he was sleek, just as flat-faced as his face was pointy, and her meow was a pathetic little whine, while his was a demanding howl. And Pepper hated Puss Puss even more than he hated Mrs. Goodchild. And Mrs. Goodchild was no help in the situation. Puss Puss liked to sleep on a windowsill, right opposite where Pepper used to like to sit. Now, her house was air-conditioned. She could have closed that window, But no, she preferred to lay in wait with a squeeze bottle of water, which never worked. Pepper would circle around and charge her and send her running back into her own house. But the worst that happened was when Mrs. Goodfellow took possession of her brand new white velvet sofa. And where did she place it? Right against the wall, underneath that window where Puss used to like to sleep on the sill. And so that very same night, Pepper got out. Puss was sleeping on the back of the new velvet sofa. Pepper snuck up. And then he jumped up onto the screen, hanging on with all his claws, let out the most earth-shattering howl you can imagine, and scared Puss so bad she completely lost control of her bladder and peed all over Mrs. Goodfellow's brand new sofa. Oh, there was an all-out war after that. A complaint was going to be registered with the ASPCA. The city was going to be notified, and there was going to be a lawsuit for the cost of her sofa. But fate intervened. That night, Mr. Goodfellow came home. Now, he worked at the Space Coast, and he spent 3.5 weeks out of every month there, only came home for 3 days at a time. I wonder why. But this time he had news. They were being transferred to Houston. They were to leave immediately. He had plane tickets for the very next day in his pocket, and the movers would come and pack up the house. And just like that, within 48 hours, Puss, Mrs. Goodfellow, and the violated sofa were gone. And then a remarkable thing happened. Pepper changed. No longer the terror of the neighborhood. He became a cat of peace, well-mannered, polite, even patient. So what happened next came kind of out of the blue. The vet said that Pepper ate something very bad, and we weren't able to save him. And so he passed on before he ever had a chance to prove his transformation to the neighborhood. I buried Pepper in our yard, and I cried. He was a problem, but he was my problem, and I always loved him. Pepper.
Heat gathers in the corner, captured in light, warming my skin. Is my vision blurred, or will I finally see? It's time for me to be the destination. I'm gonna pick my favorite color, gonna ride it up into the sky. I don't mean to ask too much of you or me, but I'm gonna pick my favorite color. Red may be the fastest, but that don't mean a damn thing to me. I'm more interested in harmony, so let's find out what we can be. Heat gathers all around us, strangers walking hand in hand. Voices move toward the yellow. We're finally passing paths to make a stand. We're crossing paths to finally make a stand. Silence rings true in my ears, confirming our connection through the fear. Again we find ourselves in sorrow, never diminished through the years. Thunder rolls in waves around us, swaying as the train rolls by. Vibration builds body by body, forcing the smoke up to the sky. Voices blend to tell the story, a picture of what should be, one that all can dream of, fusing an emotional symphony. Did I hear you question if this will come to pass? I'm not singing the same thing we always have. We always have. This needs vertical velocity to move pale, revolting history. We always have. Won't shame you, shun you, or shut you out for the things you're still confused about. We always have. United since our birth, you'll stand with me proudly. I'm glad you're my brother, my sister. Let's make it happen now. Did I hear you question if this will come to pass? Let's all sing the same thing. Make it fast. Make it last. Once again, I'm happy to turn you over to Madeline Potts.
The birds circled low. For a moment, the whole cabin was engulfed in its shadow. Irella turned to Owen. You take heed, that be an omen. Oh, Irella, ain't no such thing as omens. Mama said that's all just superstition kind of talk. Well, ain't no care of mine you take heed or not. I'm just trying to tell you, that means somebody gonna be gone. Well, Miss Irella, I'm just trying to tell you, you got a Genuise letter waiting for you at the post office, and it ain't no care of mine if you go and get it or not. Owen, there ain't no such thing as a Genuise letter. You must mean a certified letter. Owen lowered his eyes. It was whispered among his friends that anyone who looked into Irella's eyes could be cursed. He regretted his outburst. Yes, ma'am. He turned and walked away. It was always the same, Irella thought. People don't want to listen, and I can't blame them. Nobody likes hearing bad news. It was like that with Dax Thomas. Said he was sitting under a tree and saw the biggest blackbird ever. Had a wingspan of 6 feet, he said. Flew right over him. Circled, too. They found Dax 2 days later, sitting under that same tree, looking like he was just taking a rest. Irella went back to thinking about Owen and about his mother, Nyla. She liked Nyla. Nyla met Owen's daddy when she was only 15, became a mama when she was 16, and by that time, Owen's daddy was never around. He appeared one time when Owen was still a baby. Nyla didn't want to let him in. He didn't like that. He pushed open the door, beat her something terrible. Then he disappeared, and he'd never been heard from ever since, and Irella thought, good riddance to him, too. Irella looked up at the sun. It was already 3/4 of the way to setting. No time to walk into town and back. Whatever was in that envelope was just going to have to wait until the morning. Now, the post office was really just a stack of 3 cigar boxes on a shelf below the cash register at Irvin's General Store. One was marked in, one was marked out, and one was marked money, although the money box also held stamps. Irvin Jr. had inherited the store from Irvin Sr. He was a quiet man, but a little bit nosy, and he liked working there. He was such a regular fixture, people forgot he was standing around and spoke freely. And Irvin got to listen. This morning he was holding that envelope up to the light when the bells on the door jingled. The door opened and in walked Irella. He held out the envelope. Miss Irella, I have your mail here for you. You got to sign for it, you know. Probably holding it up to the light all morning, Irella thought. She took her time, bought a can of Louisiana coffee with chicory, signed for the letter, put it in her pocket, and headed home. She put the can of coffee on her shelf in the kitchen, sat down at the table, and looked at the return address. It was from her sister, Addie. She slit the envelope open. A note and a check fell out. A check for $2,000. Irella read the note. I'm not doing very good, Irella. Doctor says I got a real high fever. I might not make it, so I'm sending this money on to you for safekeeping if something should happen to me, 'cause I don't trust no attorney would actually get it to you. Irella put the letter down and thought about the bird. Later that evening, she was sitting on her porch, listening to the crickets and the sound of the mockingbird when she heard bicycle tires on the gravel. It was John Pressure, the town's doctor and self-appointed preacher. Irella didn't like that. She didn't think the same person in charge of keeping people alive should be believing that the life to come was better than this one. That might be a conflict of interest. But she greeted him politely. Good evening, John. Where are you heading off to? I'm going over to Nyla's. Owen got kicked by her mare cleaning out the stable this afternoon. Ain't right, a young boy like that having to fill in for the chores of a man. Nyla said he ain't doing too good. I'm going to go check up on him. The news was upsetting. Now Irella had 2 people to worry about. Owen and Addie. Damn that bird. Nothing changed over the next 2 days. There was no news from Addie, and Owen lay asleep to the world. Irella paced her porch. Maybe she was wrong this time. Maybe the premonition was wrong this time. Oh, she wanted to be wrong this time. A chill swept over her. She heard the whoosh of wings. She pressed 2 fingers against the corners of her eyes. She wasn't going to give that damn bird the satisfaction of seeing her cry. Irella! Irella! The call came from the road. It was John Pressure. Oh, that man had a way of showing up at her worst moments. She brushed her tears away like she was wiping dirt off of her face and smoothed her hair down. Morning, Irella. I brought you your mail. Nothing certified this time. He winked. But something from Addie. Irella thanked him and waited till he was out of sight till she opened the letter. Good news, it began. Addie's fever had broken. She was going to be okay. And by the way, could Irella please return the check? That last line made her smile until she realized if Addie was okay, then the premonition had to be about Owen. Oh, no, please, no. The morning was endless. Irella paced her porch until 10 a.m. and then she set off down the road. She wanted to see for herself that Owen was doing okay. She arrived at Nyla's. Nyla was wearing an apron over a house dress. She was picking leaves in her yard. She stood up when she saw Irella. Morning, Irella. Going to make some mint tea for Owen. He's up now. You can go in and see him. Irella kept the visit short. She held on to Owen's hand for a moment before she left. She could still feel its warmth as she walked down the road. The day was perfect, warm and breezy. The worries that had plagued her were gone. Addie was going to be okay. Owen was going to be okay. She reached home and sat down under the shade of the chestnut tree. It wasn't like her to get it wrong. She wondered about that premonition. She felt a gust of air coming her way. And then she heard the whoosh of powerful wings. She looked up in time to see the bird and powerful talons reaching down toward her. Oh, she understood. She lowered her head. Damn that bird.
Madeline is such an incredible friend of mine. I absolutely love her. I met Madeline because we did our living room theater in her living room, and was just full of really, really sharp people who read more into our performance than I thought was there. And ever since then, I've noticed that Madeline does have a unique talent for delivering a story, for understanding experience, for bringing it back up in a very real and relatable way. She always blows me away. One of the best things about preparing for the Songs and Stories shows is that sometimes I get to hear those stories when it's just she and I. I get to hear them first, and I can tell you it's quite a moving experience. Man with no arms is painting today. He stands on a busy street corner. He paints with his feet for the coins that we pay. As the people pass slowly by, man with no arms has put me to shame. I was drowning in my own despair. For all of my failures, myself I did blame. man with no arms has made me aware. It's not what happens to you, it's what you do about it. It's not what happens to you, it's what you do that counts. It's not what happens to you, it's what you do about it. It's not what happens to you, it's what you do that counts. Most people pass by without even looking. He reminds them of weakness within. But I had to stop and stare at his courage. He gave me the strength to start again. It's not what happens to you, it's what you do about it. It's not what happens to you, it's what you do that counts. It's not what happens to you, it's what you do about it. It's not what happens to you, it's what you do that counts. The man with no arms looks like Jesus. I think that now maybe I know. He sent me a message without even speaking. The man with no arms is trying to show. It's not what happens to you, it's what you do about it. It's not what happens to you, it's what you do that counts. It's not what happens to you, it's what you do about it. It's not what happens to you, it's what you do that counts. It's amazing how the human condition can be captured in a timeless fashion by music and by stories. Some stories don't change regardless of what else happens in the world or where we are as a society. So it's an honor to be doing that.
Hi there. Welcome to my backyard. I have a story for you. It dates back many years before I was a storyteller. I was a potter, and I made my living going to festivals and shows selling pots. This is a story from that time. It goes like this. I heard Quigley long before I saw him, clacking his way up the steps of David's porch. I braced myself. I didn't know what to expect. The day before, on the long dirt drive up to his house, I encountered a rattlesnake. It reared up, ready to strike at my van. It was terrifying. The door pushed open. A 200-pound pig came waddling into the room. "Oh, that's Quigley," David said. "You have a pet pig?" "Well, we thought he was a Vietnamese pot-belly pig, and he was so little and cute when we got him. But he just grew and grew, and, well, I guess they sold us just a plain old regular pig. And he's always hungry. He wants you to pet him." I reached out and stroked his back. It was like petting a scrub brush that had lost most of its bristles. Finally, David said, "That's enough, Quigley. Out." Quigley stayed put. "Does he understand commands?" "Yes, out, Quigley." And he pushed Quigley out the door. David disappeared into the kitchen and came out with 2 mugs of coffee. We spread a road map out on the dining room table and charted our route to Atlanta, Georgia. We were going to the Atlanta Convention Center for a trade show, a prestigious trade show. David said to me, I got a lot riding on this show. I really need to make some money. I said, me too. I got a ton of bills at home. We clinked coffee cups, and then David said, you ready? Yeah, let's do it. We climbed into our vans. You take the lead, I called, and I followed him up that dirt road till we made it out onto the open highway. We reached Atlanta at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and stepped into the Marriott Hotel. It was all marble. David whispered, pretty hotsy-totsy. Yeah. I felt like the hillbilly cousin. I had spilled coffee on my T-shirt, and David had been eating peanuts while we were driving and shelling them, and he had a crotch full of peanut shell dust. But they gave us a room. Setup was the next day, and the show opened in the evening. David's display was right across the aisle from mine. His pots were as huge as mine were petite, great big 4 and 5 foot tall vessels. Designers and decorators flocked to his display. But by the end of the evening, he hadn't sold anything, hadn't taken any orders, and neither had I. And that was the signature of the show for the next 3 days. On Saturday night, which was the 3rd day of a very disappointing show, David said, we need to have some fun. Let's go dancing. Oh, that sounded good. He said, there's this place called the Underground. There's food, there's dancing, there's music. We can get there by trolley. Well, trolley was just an additional charm. So we cleaned ourselves up, found a stop, and when the trolley came, we got on board. It must have been an off hour. We were the only passengers. We sat up front and talked to the driver. A few minutes later, he made another stop, and another passenger climbed on. He was a tall, thin man wearing a khaki jacket. He held on to the rail with one hand. I couldn't really see his face. It was mainly covered by a hood. He kept his other hand in his pocket. He leaned over toward the driver. Smith Street. I'm sorry, sir. This trolley doesn't go to Smith Street. Smith Street, the man said. Sir, I'd take you there if I could, but this trolley doesn't go to Smith Street. Smith Street. Take me to Smith Street. I got a gun. And he wiggled something in his pocket. David and I looked at each other, not knowing what to expect. But the driver was very calm. He actually spoke to the man in conspiratorial tones. Okay, man, I'm going to take you to Smith Street. But you know what? You should tell these 2 guys to move to the back of the trolley. You don't want them getting in your way. The man thought about it. Yeah. You 2, you move to the back. So David and I walked to the back of the trolley and sat down on the long seat opposite the rear doors, which were open. And the trolley began to move, slowly. I looked toward the driver, and I could see in his rear view mirror that he was looking at us. His eyes kept darting sideways. I nudged David, but he had seen it too. He grabbed my hand. He said, "Get ready. He's going to let us off." The trolley slowed down, and when it was at barely a crawl, David grabbed me, pushed me forward. I stumbled down those steps, off the trolley, right into the arms of a perfect stranger. He wrapped his arms around me. He wouldn't let me go. I began to scream. He was trying to tell me something, but I couldn't understand what he was saying over the sound of my own voice. And then he jerked his jacket open, and I saw his Atlanta policeman's shield. Then I looked toward the front of the trolley, and I saw 2 more policemen escorting the trolley jacker away. They frisked him. His gun turned out to be a banana. I said to our policeman, "How did you know? Was there a secret button on the steering wheel or something?" He wasn't giving away any trade secrets. He ignored my question and said, "I've called a taxi. It should be here any minute." And sure enough, a taxi arrived. David and I climbed in the back seat. "Where to?" the driver said. "Back to the Marriott," we answered simultaneously. We'd had enough excitement for one evening. The next day was Sunday, the last day of the show. By 12 o'clock, David still had not sold anything or even taken an order. And in a rather dramatic move, he climbed into one of his pots, wiggled his shoulders underneath the neck so just his head was sticking out, and he had a sign on it. It said, "I'm not coming out of this pot until someone buys something." Well, that got him some attention. People came to talk to the potter in the pot. Other artists came by to schmooze away the afternoon, but by 4 o'clock he still hadn't sold anything, and he acknowledged defeat. But when he tried to get out of the pot, he couldn't feel his legs, and his arms and shoulders had gone kind of numb too. He looked at me. I said, "What's wrong, David?" And he mouthed, "I'm stuck." Well, I'm normally a compassionate person. I don't enjoy other people's problems, but it must have been fatigue-driven hysteria. I broke out laughing. The artist on either side of me said, "What's so funny?" I said, "It's David. He's stuck in his pot." It was like dominoes. Word spread down the aisle, and with it, laughter sprung out of every display booth. Finally, a security guard came over. He looked at David, took a walkie-talkie out of his pocket and talked into it. And 2 minutes later, a little mini lift truck arrived. And they hoisted David out of his pot to the applause of all the rest of us onlookers. We packed down. We loaded up our displays. We drove out into the Atlanta night. We found a cheapy motel on the far side of town and settled in, each of us silently absorbing our disappointment. In the morning, we resumed our journey. When we crossed the Florida border, we stopped at the Stuckey's. There was a long line at the counter. I said to a woman, "Is something going on?" She said, "Oh, it's the lottery. You know, this is the closest place that us folks from Georgia can come and buy Florida lottery tickets. And you know, the jackpot is $13 million. David and I looked at each other. We bought 2 tickets. We promised each other that we would share our winnings. We fantasized over a cup of coffee about all the things we were going to do with all that money. Then we got into our vans. He headed back to Micanopy, and I drove on to Winter Park, Florida. About a week later, David called me. "Hey, did you ever check your ticket?" "Oh, yeah, David, I did. I didn't have a single number. I didn't win anything. How about you?" "Oh, I was so excited," he said. "I got the first 5 numbers, but the 6th one was off, so I didn't win anything." It took me a moment to think about what he was saying. Could he possibly not know, that that ticket was worth a lot of money? "David, what did you do with your winning ticket?" "Winning? No, I didn't win anything." And I know it was petulant, but I tore it up. I threw it on the compost, and Quigley ate it. I didn't have the heart to tell him he had thrown away thousands of dollars. Well, I look back on that time of my life. I wouldn't wish that kind of financial stress on anyone, but we survived. We more than survived. We compensated for our poverty with an abundance of creativity. We celebrated our successes and we dealt with our disappointments. The children grew up. They went to school. They embarked on their own journeys in life. David relocated to Massachusetts and became a successful potter up there. I eventually changed careers. But all those years that I spent bent over my potter's wheel taught me that shape is created from the inside out, just like the values that flavor my memories.
Thank you for watching. I'm really glad you were here. I do have one more song for you. This one is inspired and actually written by my dog. My wife and I have been spending an awful lot of time with the dog lately as she gets older, and so do we. And I just have figured out what it is that she's been trying to tell me for the last 15 years. So she put it down in these lyrics, and I hope you enjoy them. Oh, way. Oh, way. Sleeping on the back porch, laying in the sun. Roll down the window, I'm headed for some fun. Wind on my face, sand in my teeth. I'ma roll over and push you with my feet. Sleeping in real late, never wearing clothes. Swimming in the lake, playing with the hose. I'm scratching where I'm itching, sniffing all around. This is home for me, don't mind laying on the ground. Listening to the young ones yell, playing in the backyard. I'll do anything for you as long as it's not too hard. Paying taxes, washing cars, always going out to bars. Do you have the right amount? Worried about a bank account. Cut my toenails, brush down my spine. I know you love me even though I beg and whine. Grateful in the morning, lazy in the day. Snuggle with my mama, sleep the time away. I like what you're eating, I wish you'd share some. I'm licking my lips, I guess I get none. I'd give anything I have, sniffing your underwear. Sticking my head in the pillows at night, laying there beside you. Babies know what I know, and you don't. Babies know what I know, and you forgot. Babies know what I know, you went and got old. Hey, oh, we're rolling. Hey, oh, we're rolling. I'd do anything for them. I know that they are your friends. I trust them implicitly. Tell them they can pet me. I'm not worried about God or presidents, and I don't need a permanent residence. I can go anywhere. All humans love me. What's that? I hear a cat. You don't hear it? You're broken. I guess we know who's superior here. It's me. I guess we know who's superior here. It's me. I guess we know who's in charge here. It's me. I I don't know what superior means, but I'm free. They say all dogs go to heaven, but I don't think so. I'm not being negative. There's just no proof even for the hardest believers. Labrador retrievers, no dogs are unbelievers. We're just great perceivers. When I meet a new friend, I sniff them in the butt. I enjoy being a mutt, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way. It's a compliment. You'd be surprised. The things I smell, I could tell you a lot. I'm easy to love and so smart. I can take you by the heart. I don't understand why some like cats, and someday I'm gonna catch one. You've treated me with kindness my entire life. I never had to wash myself or deal with a wife. It's like that other song you sing. Guess it's really hard for me to put it any more eloquently. I love you.